Welcome to family, welcome to friends, welcome to work colleagues, and a welcome to those who may not have known John personally, but are here today to support their family and the friends of John Keith Connolly. Also, it's lovely to see John's canine buddy Sam here today. She's just sitting down the front here. And it's also lovely to see children here today. In times past, they were often excluded from funeral services, so it's a very special warm welcome to them. My name is Heather Adair, and I am the celebrant today, but I prefer to consider myself the weaver of a story, where the chapters are supplied by those who love John. Lisa, William, and 2-week-old Charlotte, we all support you today as you farewell the most important man in your lives. Today will be extremely hard, but there is not a person in this building who is not reaching out to you with love, compassion, and friendship. I hope this gives you some comfort in your hour of need. We're recording this service so that John's family in England can be part of it. So a warm welcome to John's mum Joan. I'm going to give her a wave, the camera's over there, and to his sister Karen and her husband Darren, and to his sister Marie. Also to his nephews and nieces, Bethany, Charlotte, Daniel and Jensen. And I believe there's a bunch of John's UK friends who will also be watching this recording. It will be very hard for you all to not be here today, but your voices will be heard through the messages you have sent. Joan, you wouldn't believe how many people are here to pay the respects to your boy. It is a testament to the high esteem he was held in. And hopefully the camera will do a pan at this gathering so you can feel the love and support, and that we feel strongly that you are all part of today. John does have some New Zealand-based cousins, so thank you for Angela and Michelle for travelling up from New Plymouth, and to his Papakura-based cousins Michael, Linda, Uncle Peter and Auntie Delwyn, our condolences for your loss. To Lisa's family, Mum Lorraine and Aaron, and Lisa's siblings, Kerry, here I go again, I've been practising that one, Alia, got it, Max and Scarlett. Your support you give to Lisa, William and Charlotte is immeasurable. And to Liz, William's mum and her husband Brian, in times of grief there are no barriers, and we are all here to honour William's dad and offer our condolences to you all, and in particular to you, William. And to Lisa's friends and work colleagues, I'm sure it goes without saying that you will always have her back. To John's friends, and particularly those from John's police family, what a tower of support you have been to John and Lisa since John was diagnosed with cancer. Putting that blue uniform on is not just a job. There is a fellowship present that most employees never get to experience. I'm sure you will continue your support of Lisa and John's children. John, as most of you know, was a pretty blunt, take no prisoners, apart from work ones, sort of man. If he liked you, then you would have found him to be loyal, engaging, funny, direct and motivating. However, he did not tolerate fools, and as you will hear, had a rather colourful way of speaking when he wanted to get his message across. Those who have been asked to speak, I am sure, will be able to paint a very clear picture of who John was and the gap he has left in people's lives. We're not opening up the floor due to the number of speakers already saying a few words. However, after the service, there will be an open mic at the Tuakau Hotel for those who wish to share stories and memories of John. Everyone is invited after the service to the hotel for light refreshments, and for those out of town folk, the hotel is on the main street and walking distance. It's straight down the side of this building. And Graham's Funerals are happy for you to leave your cars parked here, but they do lock the gates at 5. There is a memory book in the lobby, and if you haven't already signed it, please do, as it is really important for Lisa and in the future for John's children to read your comments about their dad. As colourful as I suspect some of those messages will be. Also, there are some slips of paper by the book if anyone would like to support the John Squad. Toilets are over in that corner if anyone needs it, and I'm sure I don't have to remind any of you that you have your phones on silence. And at the very end of the service, I will ask the pallbearers to come forward, and I will call upon the members of the police to form a guard of honour as David Phillip pipes John's casket out of the building for a private cremation. I'd like to call upon Rogan Smith, his friend and partner in crime and hunting, to give the eulogy and share his memories of his buddy.
Remember to put that down so we don't jab anybody in the eye. Good afternoon, loved ones, family, friends and colleagues of John Keith Connolly. I have the unenviable task of trying to write a eulogy that captures John Connolly. I'm sure there's a sweepstake for how far I'll make it. There, that's 40 words, so half of you are out of running already. In writing this, I realised I was faced by a challenging decision. Either drop the C-bomb in church and get struck by dirty great bolts of lightning, or don't drop the C-bomb and get struck by smaller but probably infinitely better aimed bolts of lightning. Basically, I came to realise that God was known for his forgiveness, while Mr. Connolly definitely was not. So, as I go through this service, I'll deal with the inevitable appearance of the C-bomb. Instead of that word, I'll use a replacement word that I can use with the same emphasis and relish. After all, this is a family show, and it's not a jug session. So I will use the word cartographer, and you'll all know what I'm talking about. Young Master Connolly attended Thongsley Primary School and college at Hitchingbroke School in Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire, England. I'm surprised that none of the teachers have reached out to share stories of John as the model respectful student. I'll keep waiting by the email, perhaps they're held up in the interweb. As you would expect, John was trouble and mischief from the very first. He got a tattoo at 17 years old and joined the Army Cadets due to his fascination with everything gun-related. He was never cured of that particular disease. At the ripe age of 18 years, he was shot in the head with an air pistol by his best friend, Mark Devon, which will certainly explain a lot for most of us present in the room today. He was very lucky that day and recovered enough to enable him to shoot his other best friend, David Francis, in the stomach a short time later. John was fanatical about firearm safety by the time I became his shooting buddy later in life, and I now know why. John's life was touched with sadness early when he lost his 17-year-old brother Mark to muscular dystrophy. This hit John extremely heavily, as there was only 1 year between them, and he found it difficult to talk about, even much later in life. Technically, John should have had that illness too, as his mother was a carrier, and the gene is passed to male offspring. But thankfully, John did not contract that disease and lived to continue his everyday battle through life and with life. He seemed indestructible to his family, which anyone who's worked with him in the iCar would agree with. He's described by family as stubborn and hot-headed and causing them endless trouble in youth, basically being a right little cartographer. Well, we all know he grew out of that. Those who know John know that he's a private man and did not lightly share details of his life. The middle part of his life for me was spoken of only in vague references to war-torn deserts, combat experiences, and life and death near misses. If there are people here with whom John shared more than I regarding that, I recommend that you keep those rare details shared to yourself. It appears it was the way the man himself wanted it. In 1995, John met Liz Lingan, now Liz Harker, and the pair were together for 12 years. During October 2002, they immigrated to New Zealand to escape the rat race of England and link up with extended family in New Zealand. John joined the police in 2005, and so began his 10 years of service and hard work for the county's Manukau Police. During the joining process, he came out on scope with a young, handsome, athletic, intelligent constable by the name of Constable Smith, who was several years in at this time. I've no idea what happened to my scope report from those nights, but somehow John still managed to get into the police. On the 9th of September 2006, John's life was to forever change. His world recentered around his newly born son, William Mark Connolly, named after his brother. All those who knew John for more than several minutes were struck with what a dedicated father he was. He cherished his time engaging in manly pursuits with his boy, and his constant stream of activities, trips, and quality time reminded a lot of us to pick up our own game in fatherhood, myself included. A video later in the service paints a clear picture of the love that William and John have for each other. A short time later that year, Sam Connolly, John's fur baby, came into his life. She stole and always kept a large piece of his huge heart. She's a beautiful dog, and her temperament is a testament to her loving master. She was devoted to John, and her eyes would seldom leave him when he was in the room. In early 2007, John and Liz realised that they could not continue as man and wife and parted ways, but continued to be united in their love of William. John continued policing in Counties Manukau, predominantly in the bustling community of Papakura, and it's here that he refined his well-documented technique of leaping from the patrol vehicle into mass disorder, screaming like a banshee while swinging his side handle baton at every cartographer he could lay his hands on. Some of his most cherished memories of the ICAR involve life and death circumstances that would give most people nightmares. In late 2009, John accepted a young boarder into his house to help with expenses by the name of Lisa Marie Piper. It did not take long for sparks to fly, and a short time later, John and Lisa were a couple. John, who did not see himself settling down again anytime soon, was careful at first to keep Lisa at arm's length, reluctant to admit his deeper feelings for her that were evident to the rest of us. He eventually succumbed to those feelings, and it was with extreme amusement early in our friendship that I noticed him move from referring to Lisa as my boarder to my girlfriend, and then to my partner, speaking of her more and more fondly and frequently as time went by. When John became aware of his illness last year, he realised he had no more time to hide from his feelings. He instantly proposed to Lisa, and in the next year spoke often to his family and myself of her as his soulmate. He saw early on the strength in her that we have all witnessed in the last year. And he knew he was an extremely lucky man to have her in his life. One of the last significant events in John's life was the birth of his beautiful daughter Charlotte. In the beginning of February, it seemed impossible to me, seeing his health as I did, that he would be able to fight his way to be present at her birth. But fight he did. Tooth and nail. And on the 1st of April 2016, he finally held his baby girl, and she heard his voice. I will touch now on when I first came to properly know John. There are other speakers here who will go into other parts of John's police career, but I first worked with him in the road policing unit in Pukekohe. I'd heard of the infamous mad Englishman before that, but I knew him only by reputation, large and sordid as it was. I asked Chris McMillan, who will be speaking later, "So tell me about this John Connolly guy, Chris. What am I in for?" Hoping to get some early bully, hoping to get some advice, maybe some insight. Chris's explanation, with a rather broken look on his face, was, "John's John." And he could not elaborate much more to give me any kind of lead-in. It seemed strange to me at the time. Now I realise. But as any supervisor would, I resigned myself to knocking off the rough edges on John that I'd heard he possessed. He hadn't met me before. I'd have him sorted in no time. It was a few short weeks later that I discovered John was made entirely of rough edges and granite. And I decided I would have better luck taking up the hobbies of shifting mountains or moving objects with my mind. And I'm still working on those, by the way. Both of us being cheap cartographers, John and I soon realised the benefits of carpooling from Tuakau to work. This began a period of my life that I'll always look back on fondly. A 10-minute Connolly build-up to work, a full shift of Connolly shenanigans, interspersed with handling Connolly complaints. And at the end of shift, on the way home, there'd be a 10-minute Connolly recap, during which he'd tell me about all the cartographers he had run into during that shift, and detailing with glee exactly how much they regretted it. This was usually a preview of the next day's complaints. So when I say my day was interspersed with handling Connolly complaints, I may be slightly playing it down. This entailed cutting off front counter complaints, fielding phone complaints, answering written complaints, politely interjecting between toe-to-toe heated standoffs at checkpoints, and attending meetings with John and professional standards, who I became very familiar with over my time there. Those complaints generally came to naught. The thing that I soon learned was that there was little, if any, substance to them. John was the utmost professional in his day-to-day policing career. The complaints centred mainly around delivery. People just do not like being told they are cartographers. Even if they are clearly being cartographers. Great, whopping cartographers. I like to think that the time I spent working with John on his delivery reduced the flood of these complaints to a trickle and softened his approach. At least I seem to remember less and less time spent dealing with those issues, but just let me keep that fantasy word. John's family talk about him seeming indestructible in his youth, and that's an image anyone who's worked with John will agree with. Most of us know that he'd been given proof positive by a group of young gang cartographers that he was anything but indestructible. That incident will not be the focus of today, but I mention it only to highlight something that early on amazed me while I worked with John. Despite being grievously injured at the hands of violent offenders, John never shrank from his job after that. John was still prepared to work single crewed. Not only that, but while single crewed, he still regularly, single-handedly apprehended armed offenders. There were 2 local robberies that spring to my mind while he was on my squad, where he was the officer who caught the offenders in each case. One was a carload of males who had held up the Buckland Dairy with a knife, who he single-handedly confronted and apprehended. I was always somewhat in awe that although his body had been badly broken in that day outside his house, his courage, strength and determination still burned undiminished. Early on in the beginning of spending time with John, he also infected me with a disease. Not that kind of disease. He turned me into a firearm addict, and it is a powerful addiction, and that shared addiction was the glue in our friendship. Working the same roster allowed plenty of days a week to head up to the farm and let off a few rounds. Okay, a few hundred rounds. I dread to think how much lead is lighting those hills up there in Onofero, but we were definitely keeping several ammunition deals afloat in New Zealand. There would always be a new piece of kit or a new modification to one of our guns to test and try out, often because I had over-tightened and completely stripped one part or another, and John would gleefully offer advice of, "Don't do it up too tight this time, Mongo. Mongo, great." And then when I was carefully trying to avoid over-tightening it with my ogre hands, he would pipe in with, "Come on, princess, give it a bit of elbow." So I couldn't win. Much to my wife's, and I'm sure Lisa's disgust, despite spending all our working hours together and a significant amount of our spare time, John and I would still message each other gun ideas and pictures of kit we planned to buy like a pair of teenage schoolgirls. There was also hours spent in serious and important discussions around our plans to deal with the very real and impending threat of zombie apocalypse. This time set a happy rhythm to life. Work, laugh, shoot, repeat. It continued in this way until John began to feel sick around December of 2014, January 2015. He began to speak of indigestion, heartburn, reflux and difficulty swallowing. These symptoms of John's cancer went diagnosed as heart problems for nearly 6 months, and this gave his very aggressive form of cancer a long head start on our man. By the time it was diagnosed in June, John was told he had well advanced esophageal cancer and had weeks to months to live. I know all of you here will not need to be reminded how devastating and shocking that news was. John was not surprisingly unwilling to listen to those medical cartographers when they told him he had no treatment options. He acted on some good advice and sought treatment in one of the best cancer treatment centres in the world in the UK. John's odds improved from 0% to 40% chance of a complete cure and almost certainly another 4 to 5 years to live. I think anyone with family would take the second option every time, but John was going to have to mortgage his life to do it. Upon hearing this, some of John's closest friends began in earnest ringing the fundraising bells, myself included. John was looking at a mountain of medical bills, and this is where the hobby he gave me of shifting mountains came in handy. We realised that pulling individually we would never achieve the monster total that John required to still have a life with his family if he survived the treatment as we hoped. And so the John Squad was formed. And so began the frenzy of fundraising I think most of you here will remember. The fundraising effort was, as I've said in the past, surprisingly easy. I guess John wasn't as big a cartographer as I thought he was. Selling chocolates, holding monster garage sales, nights at the bar, raffles, hitting up corporates, yeah. Even prancing around on a stage in front of 500 friends, colleagues and complete strangers, dressed as some remarkably sexy ladies. Come on guys, don't say some of you haven't spent some time alone with that cover shot from Graham Wood. These things might seem to some like great lengths to go to, but to the people here who knew John, who knew his strength, his warrior spirit, his uncompromising morals and loyalty, his devilish and twisted sense of humour, his dedication to his family and being the best father he could to William, and later Charlotte, these things were a small effort. I, for my part, had a selfish secret motive behind my seemingly charitable push on the fundraising. I didn't want to lose my pay. I'm happy that the fundraising effort was so successful and quickly reached its target, because if it hadn't, then aggravated robbery, meth cooking and contract killing was on the cards for some quick dollars. And Gabby and Lisa would have found that really hard with their little ones tagging along, so it was for the best. I have to at this stage acknowledge my beautiful wife and the other partners and families of the John Squad. Their understanding to losing their husbands and wives to fundraising on top of shift work throughout the end of last year was amazing. More recently, my wife's understanding allowed me to indulge John's shooting addiction whenever his health would allow. And then, when that could no longer happen, it allowed the hospital visits. John was a very private and proud man. In the beginning, he pushed everyone away to deal with his pain in privacy and spent his time, which was now more precious to him than gold, with the most important people in his life, his family, Lisa and William. Through the rest of his ordeal, he found the overwhelming display of love and sympathy that poured towards him from all of us. Well, from you guys. I was still calling him a stubborn old git, actually. He found that hard to deal with. John Connolly, the man, was just not wired for displays of emotion. Well, John, harden up, princess. because you make a lot of people feel very strongly about you. One way or the other, people always quickly knew how they felt about our John Connolly. He was no angel. He had his rough edges, as I've said. There's a saying, you've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette, and that begs the question exactly how many omelettes John Connolly was trying to make. If he thought you were a cartographer, he went out of his way to make sure you knew it. He had his critics. Wherever and whoever they are, they should speak very quietly and out of my earshot. Because the violence will be swift and final. It'll be hard for a lot of people who are close to John that he continued to push people away at the end. I feel extremely privileged and honoured that he let me in to support him and Lisa through those tough times. In saying that, I'm realistic though. The man knew he was never going to get up to the farm shooting without my help, so I pretty much had him by the balls. He appreciated everything everyone had done for him so much, and you'll see that from some video footage later on in the service. It may have been hard to understand, but he was protecting you from losing the John that you knew. Loud, larger than life, reliably inappropriate, sometimes vulgar, always hilarious. The man who would let you know when you were still in the car park whether or not he was in the station, from that loud English accent roaring out of the station, surrounded by peals of side-splitting laughter. That is how he wanted to be remembered. It's hard for me to correlate the length of time I knew John to how deeply our friendship ran. I can only put it down to two addicts feeding each other's habits. But when he let you in, and you truly knew John, you could not help but love the man. His unbending will, his unflinching morals, his unwavering loyalty made him the friend of a lifetime. There's now a huge John-shaped hole left in the world, and he will be missed by many, and deeply. Those he touched, he changed, as we strive to live life to the level that he did. And I'll leave you with this quote that I found, and I feel like it captures his essence perfectly. Life is too short to be little. Man is never so manly as when he feels deeply, acts boldly, and expresses himself with frankness and fervour. And that was John. Thank you all for listening.
Well, Rogan, that was a pretty epic account of who John was. I'm sure many here heard new things about John, and particularly about his early escapades with his mates Mark and David. I think it was P.G. Woodhouse who said, the fascination of shooting as a sport depends almost wholly on whether you're at the right or the wrong end of the gun. So now John's UK family and friends have sent messages to be read, and I asked Lisa Ross, Cherie Mahu and Gabriel Griffins to come forward, and they will both give 2 messages each. So if you girls could come forward, please.
This is a message on behalf of John's sister Karen. John, Bro, Hobbit. My list of names for you is endless. You were always selfless, strong-minded. I call it pig-headed, but I suppose I'll go with strong-minded now you're not here. And you always wanted to do the right thing by people. You came home at age 16, 17 with a tattoo on your arm, and our parents went mental, but you didn't care one bit. You skipped school when you weren't interested in the topic. William, don't ever do this. You'd never hurt someone on purpose. John, I will always be grateful that you're my brother. You treated Lisa like a princess. The love you have for Lisa shone through. You told me she was your soulmate, and you wanted her to stay happy after you'd gone. Darren and I are going to do our best to make sure Lisa, William, and Charlotte are happy. And if they need anything, they know that they can always count on us to help them, always. The 6 months you spent here, we shall never forget. You had such a good time, even though it wasn't under the best of circumstances. I remember giving you your injections in your stomach. As Lisa, you didn't do it right. You obviously need more practice. You used to tell me off for laughing as I jabbed you in the stomach, or as I pretended to throw it at your stomach like a dart. You ended up learning to do it yourself, as me and Lisa apparently couldn't do it right. Also, as Lisa and Liz will remember, while you were here, we asked you all to babysit while we had Dan at the doctor's. We came home to carnage, as Lisa and Liz nearly managed to set our house on fire, in your words, John, over fish and chip wrappers. You'd left Lisa and Liz with the kids to go and get your fish you'd forgotten back at the fish shop, and you came home to my oven smoking. Charlotte had put your chips, still in the wrapper, in my electric oven to keep warm. You put the fire out by putting the chips under the tap, then shouted at Liz and Lisa for being irresponsible parents. You stormed back to Mum's, and you never got to eat your fish and chips. Boy, you were mad that night. We all found it funny, which made you even madder. But now, I bet you're up there laughing at all of us. Darren and I miss you so much. We got on so well, and there will always be a part of our life missing until we meet again, Hobbit, Karen and Darren. And this is a message from John's nephew, Jensen. Jonas, our nickname for John, you loser, standing joke. I miss you. You need to come back now. I need to see you just one more day, please. Daniel, Bethany and Charlotte will miss you. You took the mickey out of all of us, but we didn't take it off you. We would tease you back. All too much like you in so many ways. We will forever miss you. You leave a gaping hole in our lives that will never be filled. But I doubt you aren't up there shooting something or someone. We love you forever. Jensen, Daniel, Bethany and Charlotte.
This is a story from John's mum, Joan. One day I went to catch the bus into town. As I got closer to the bus shelter, I saw John hiding behind it. I walked up to see him, but ended up chasing him around the bus shelter as he was supposed to be at school. I ended up getting on the bus, going into town and doing my shopping. When I arrived home, John was sitting in the garden. I asked him if he'd had a nice day at school. He said no, but the smile on his face was fantastic. And there's a message from Mark Bevan, his boyfriend. I don't know if any of our earlier exploits are suitable for more sensitive ears, although we did get up to some crazy, funny, life-affirming stunts over the years that I think drove both our lives into motorbikes, rugged outdoor stuff, and eventually the police, to have more weird and wonderful experiences whilst getting paid. We grew up like brothers and ended up with almost mirrored lives and outlooks. I'm proud to say that John was my best friend, and I'm very proud of him for the life that he built in New Zealand with his family.
And I've got a message from David Francis, who's one of John's UK buddies. I first met John in late 1979. We just moved to Huntingdon, and it was my first day at school. The teacher sat me next to John, and from that moment, we were inseparable. I was accepted into his house as a family member. In fact, my mother often called John and I brothers. I recall summers where time stood still and we played endlessly outdoors, by the river, sometimes in the river, though not intentionally, hunting rabbits together on the land near our homes, cycle rides where we rode for hours, just talking about everything and nothing. So many memories, so many very fond memories. That's not to say we always saw eye to eye. We had our heated differences, some even became physical, yet every argument or childish brawl, we always sought to put things right. Truth be told, it was more he than I. John always tried to do the right thing, even when it was clearly not the right thing. We lost touch for many, many years, but he found me through Facebook. I remember being away on a business trip when he contacted me. We chatted for hours that evening, recounting story after story, as if no time had passed. Our lives had taken very different paths, but it felt like we'd only just said goodbye to each other. Over the next several months, we chatted often, though life and work cut many conversations short. Then he told me about the cancer. We joked semi-seriously about meeting up. At that point, I had no idea how serious it was, though I know John did. I'm sorry I never got to see my friend, my brother, one last time. But in a way, it makes it easier to remember him as he'd want to be remembered. Not ill or in pain, but the guy you all knew. The boy I knew and the man he grew into. The man who threw himself into everything he did. The man who lived for his son and his new daughter. The man that each of you knew as John, a friend. Just as many of you can say, he had my back a few times. To Lisa, my deepest condolences. Joan and the rest of the family, I'm so very sorry for your loss. Goodbye, John. Rest easy, my friend. And another friend of John's from the UK, Gordon Marshall. John and I went on a coach trip to Germany. We couldn't believe how cheap the beer was. John decided to borrow a second suitcase off my sister and filled it with bottles of beer to bring home. We went to catch the coach home, only to be told it was an extra £40 for that second bag. John was shocked and couldn't decide whether to leave behind his clothes or the beer. On a freezing December morning, John and I went hunting for 6 hours. We were frozen and never saw a thing. As we got in the car to drive home, we ran over a rabbit. We stopped and John said, "Put a few shots in its head, and then we can pretend to everyone we shot it."
Thank you, Joan, and your family and friends for sending all those messages across, and I really hope you do feel part of this. Now, I just ask Lisa and her mum to come forward.
John, my best friend, my husband, the love of my life, my teacher, my inspiration, my role model, my motivation, my biggest supporter, my cheerleader, my everything. Who knew that when I answered your trade me ad for a room to rent, that you would end up being all these things to me? When I first met you, I was quiet, shy, timid girl who had no confidence in herself or any faith in her abilities. Over time, you managed to take that girl and transform her into who she is today. You told me I was beautiful. You supported and guided me when pursuing my dreams. You believed in me when I did not. You would make me laugh when I was down. Encouraged me not to take myself or my life so seriously. You kept me company when I needed it, and even when I didn't. You'd give me a hard time about my driving and how messy I am. You'd drop everything whenever I needed you. I'm going to miss your OCD vacuuming, your infectious laugh, and your loud voice that would often wake me up in the morning. I will miss you stopping by to visit me on shift and pulling me over when you were on duty just because you could. I will miss going to the movies and watching The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones and Supernatural with you. I will miss trekking through Hunua with you, walking Sam and our runs together. I will miss when you cook chicken tonight for me for dinner and our morning cups of tea, even though you can never get it quite right for me. I will miss our Chinese nights, eating pizza down by the river and our trips to Hahei. I will miss everything about you. Thank you for taking me to Thailand, where we rode the elephants, lays by the pool, marvelled at the geckos chirping away, and kayaked around the outer islands of Koh Samui. You were terrible to kayak with. Whatever I did was wrong, and in the end I gave up and let you do all the work. I will treasure the evenings spent dining on fine Thai food, downing cocktails as we watch storms roll in just offshore. I promise I will take William and Charlotte there, just like we talked about. Thank you for showing me where you grew up, for introducing me to your mum, Karen, Darren and the kids. They kept us company during our time in the UK. Excuse me. And I don't know what I'd do without them now. Thank you for taking me to the American War Cemetery, where so many had laid down their lives during the war, for taking me on the river cruise past the Eiffel Tower, and fulfilling my dreams of seeing an owl. I will take our daughter back there so she can see where she came from. These are only a fraction of the memories and things that I will miss. Although it was only a short time and we both wished for far longer, I am so blessed to have had you in my life at all. I cannot bring myself to say goodbye, but instead I say farewell until we meet again. Over the past year, as John and I travelled this journey, we have been utterly amazed and humbled by the support we have received. From close friends, family, work colleagues, acquaintances, and the community as a whole, you all rallied together to fundraise and support us. Although things did not pan out how we wanted, your efforts meant friends, family, William and I had more time with John than we would have otherwise had. It also meant that John was able to see his daughter, hold her and feel her breath on his face. This is invaluable to us and something that can never be repaid, but from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all what you've been able to do for us.
I think it's quite a nice point at this stage to just pause, and we're going to hear a lovely song that the family have chosen from Live, the group, and it's called Overcome.
The world is bleeding, feeling just fine. All known in our castle, we're always free and choose.
This is just a beautiful day. In fact, the way everyone is sharing their thoughts, their love, and showing support for each other. And we've got a few more speakers now. So the first one I'd like to call up is Chris McMillan. Sorry.
Good afternoon, my name's Chris McMillan. I was John's boss a couple of years ago, and I'm very honoured to say that he was my mate. There's been a lot of tears today over the last couple of weeks, but I want to share some experiences of John, which I can here today, which have brought laughter and smiles to my face. I've discussed it with Luke and Sheree over the last couple of weeks, and Luke this morning, and we've been cracking up non-stop over them. When John I was first told that John was coming to my section, I asked the senior sergeant what I'd done wrong. I didn't like John, I didn't know him. I saw him as a very loud person. He was overly confident, and he called every single female darling or love or sweetheart. A couple of weeks later, John came onto my section and honestly described him as the ultimate section member. And I'm sure Warwick will back me up on that. John's very loyal. He would have your back 24/7. He's the first man that I would choose in any team that I had. If I got to choose, John would be the first person that I would pick. Any person that he handcuffed and had in the back of the car, he would give them the history of how handcuffs were made. According to John, in the early 1900s, they were first made of licorice. But they quickly changed after the offenders realised they could eat their way through it and jumped out of the horse and cart and took off. Not everyone found that funny. John did. Most people, when they got arrested by John, they would say, "Am I going to jail?" No matter how minor the offence was, John would say, "Yes, you are going to jail." They'd probably be out of the station before he was, but he would tell them, "You're going to prison, mate." There's one bloody funny incident where we locked a guy up for warrants, and he told us that the day prior he'd been in and made a complaint to our professional standards guys. And this guy wasn't very happy because the person he'd given his complaint to didn't give his bit of paper back. Don't know what the bit of paper was, but it was a simple bit of paper. And John said, "Oh, okay, what was the guy's name?" I said, "Oh, look, I'm not too sure." "Well, can you describe him?" And he said, "Yeah, he was an older gentleman. He was about 6 feet tall. He had dark greyish hair." And John said, "Oh, okay." And John was getting more excited and more excited. I thought, "Shit, what's going on here?" John said, "Oh, did he have a bushy moustache?" And the guy said, "Yeah, he did." "Was his last name Brady?" "Yeah, I think it is." As soon as we got rid of the guy, John shot off. I said, "Where are you going, John?" He said, "I'm going up to arrest Keith Brady for theft." It was actually quite serious, and I had to wheel him in a bit. I said, "Mate, you can't do that." There was a number of times I had to wind John in a little bit, but deep down I was laughing. Laughed all the time about everything that John did. Smith's Ave, if you know Smith's Ave in Papakura, was beautiful. One Saturday night, and I'm pretty sure Warwick was there, co-offender and a lot of things, we came across a female who had her car broken down in the middle of the road. She couldn't get it up the driveway, and the driveway was right there. But this female was about this tall, about this wide. She had very short hair. Look, she was pretty butch, to be honest. And after myself and John and probably Warwick had pushed the car up, John said to her, it was all quiet and everything was good, we could have just carried on, but John had to get the last say, and he said to this female who looked like a male, "Sir, I'm sure a big strong lad like yourself could have pushed the car up yourself." There was absolutely no need for it, but I think John was bored and he wanted to start World War III, and there were some people that came out of their houses that night after that because she started racking up and John was keen. I had to tell him off, but deep down I was laughing. It was funny as hell. Every morning John would start the same with me, being his supervisor. It would be something like, "Morning, Sergeant. I see you didn't go for a run last night by the size of your stomach." Or "Can I take your shoes upstairs and shine them?" It wasn't because he was brown-nosing, because I obviously didn't have the same standards as he did. Despite all the bad things that John did, and I class him as funny, he did have a heart of gold. He was a young boy who we got called to a local Papakura school. And and this kid was about 7 or 8, and he was playing up, smashing the school up and doing whatnot, so we thought, oh, we're going to put the shits up this kid. So 4 of us jumped in the van and we blue lighted, we turned the lights and sirens on, and we hummed down to the school and we did a big in the driveway of the school, and we thought, man, he's gonna shit himself. So we got him. I'm pretty sure John wanted to handcuff him, but we didn't. We chucked him in the back of the van with us, and John gave him the old "How's your father?" verbally. And once we got back to the station, John and this kid had disappeared, and John being John, I think, oh, he's gone out the back and given him the old 1-2 or something like that. I went upstairs to get drinking water, and there was John sharing his lunch with him. John had taken his own lunch, given it to the boy, bought him a can of Coke. I pulled John aside and said, what the hell are you doing, mate? This isn't like you. And he said, oh, look, the kid's got some problems at home, I just want to talk to him about it. So that was John. Tough man, funny as hell, very inappropriate at times. But if there was someone that needed a hand, he was there, no matter who they were. So I'll always remember that about John. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, and I should have kept the text, but I didn't. John texted me and said it was an honour to be your mate. But John, it was an honour being your mate. Very loyal, respectful, firm, not always fair. Good mate. You'll always be remembered, John. On behalf of my wife, members of Section 6, the traffic boys that we work with, you're a good bastard. We love you, we'll always remember you, we'll never forget you. Take care, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. I now ask Andy and Warwick to come forward.
Lisa, William, Charlotte and Sam, John, although unheard, we thank you for choosing us as your friends. You mean so much to all of us, one of life's steadfast men. You brightened up the darkest day, brought laughter to every room. We will remember you, the things you used to say so straightforwardly, and how you made each one of us wish we were courageous enough to do the same. We were not ready to say goodbye. There was more we all wanted and planned to do. Shooting, hunting, laughing, camping, watching the kids grow. Sharing this with you. Your life cut short, this is not to be. Yet know that our friendship is forever. We will carry you always in our hearts. John, a better friend no one could have. Valet, farewell, my brother.
John and I were best friends. I met John a few years ago on section when he transferred to Papakura. We quickly formed a friendship and we always aimed to partner up. His sense of humour would make a night shift feel like a comedy show, while his work ethic made you feel like you could trust him with your life. I have so many stories of us working together, but of course, being John, they're not appropriate to be told here. Just remembering how susceptible he was to getting PCAs. John was a very honest and outspoken person. He'd always offer his opinion or share a story, and sometimes at the most inappropriate of times, to the point where we had to create a safe word to warn him when to stop talking. Shenanigans. I remember just recently sitting in a restaurant with John and Lisa and a few others, and John started telling us a story about a procedure he'd had involving a very large camera going up somewhere very dark. It was a small, packed-out restaurant. So let's just say the tikka masala wasn't going down too well, where we all said to John in unison, "Shenanigans." But in all seriousness, it was this that made me admire him most. He wasn't afraid to say what he thought, not caring who he would offend. He was a wise man, and most of what he would say we would agree with, but no one else had the balls to say it. I was told recently that I had the privilege to be friends with an incredible person. I couldn't agree more. He was a strong man, and to see how he dealt with the last few months is absolutely commendable. He continued to be a role model father, husband, and friend during a very tough time, showing loyalty, selflessness, and determination right to the very end. John. I'll just mention the word "fitu" so you know what I'm talking about. Your second opinion and judgment that day stopped me from making a potentially fatal decision, and I owe my life to you for that. I just wish that there was a way that I could have repaid the favour. But you weren't just a great friend to me, you're also a great friend to my wife, Fallon. So from both of us, we will miss the heart-to-hearts, the late-night laughs, and the general shenanigans. Till we meet again, John, rest easy, my friend.
Thanks, Andy and Warwick. Now and call Inspector Mark Robottom to come up and speak on behalf of the New Zealand Police.
This is one thing that I ain't prepared to do at Police College or any exams that we do is to speak at a colleague's funeral. It's an honour to be here and to speak on behalf of police. Every day we're faced with challenges as police officers. More so for me doing this because I had to try and fit an 11-year career into a few minutes. But knowing that there's a gathering with an open mic later on this evening, there'll be a whole lot of gaps filled in, no doubt, at that function. John graduated from Wing 221 in February 2005. And having looked through his personal file, I actually came across, each recruit gets a report when they came out, and I wasn't actually going to speak about it, but when Rogan went on about how he was at school, I thought I might just bring up a couple of observations that were along the same thread, even when he was at police college. John, in his recruit report, I read from his instructor that he needs to learn to do what we tell him before he tries to create a new way of doing things, which I totally understood. When John came out, he was originally posted to Mount Wellington, but he only lasted a few months there before he came to the mighty Counties Manukau district and came to Papakura and Pukekohe. His roles he held, obviously frontline. He spent time in SOCO, the District Custody Unit, Family Violence and CJSU until his current position since 2013 on the road policing, a group based out of Pukekohe. Some of these positions were, in a word, probably not John's cup of tea, but as part of his rehabilitation after sustaining his injuries in the Tuakau incident, while he was off duty, it was his path back to frontline, which he loved. Now, John's had a long list of supervisors that I was pulling out of all his performance appraisals. A lot of them are here today. We have Emil Logan, Steve Greeley, the back of the building there, Dave Fenton, Chris McMillan, Clive Wood, Andy Bell, Wayne Flick-Lendrum, and recently Rogan Smith. I read every single performance appraisal from John, from all these supervisors. There was a common thread throughout, and it's not going to be a joke or anything funny, but it's actually it carries on what everyone's actually said before, and I feel I'm repeating myself. Respectful, productive, and dedicated. I've seen this firsthand. Every time I saw John, it was, "Hello, sir, how are you?" Very respectful, and when I reviewed all the productivity reports, John was right up there. Even reading his performance appraisals, a couple of them were saying he was the most productive member on section, the most arrests, the most tickets. Although it's not a quota system, he liked writing them out. And obviously through that file, and as everyone brought up, yes, complaints were made against John, but I can tell you that none of them were ever upheld, and it was quite amusing reading, because sometimes you have to make submissions So obviously when someone makes a complaint, you've got to make a submission. And one of them actually had me chuckling a bit. John's submission was, I think my problem is I see things in black and white and I need to work on my grey area. So I think we all understand that. Now, a lot of police officers will very early in their careers give you different answers about why they joined the police. But in the end, we all join the police to make a difference and to make our communities safe. To finish off, I'd just like to tell you about one example I pulled out of one of John's performance appraisals, actually from Andy Bell when he was doing a stint on family violence. There was a note left at the Papakura front counter and it read, to Constable Connolly, thank you for your help and support. I am now a resident at Te Araho Rehab. You saved my life. Now, John helped this person who was in dire need of support from mental health. After numerous efforts and no one willing to assist this person, John eventually got involved and got headway with the manager of Affinitia, which is the adult mental health facility, and got this person properly assessed and dealt with. Now, without John taking that time and putting that effort in, there could have been a tragic ending for this person because they were going the wrong way in life, and with the family as well. So Lisa, that was your husband. William and Charlotte, that was your father. On behalf of the New Zealand Police, we thank John and his family for his service, dedication, and commitment to the New Zealand Police and New Zealand public. Thank you.
As you've heard from his colleagues, he really did make a difference, and he was really proud of that uniform. As Rogan mentioned earlier, we now have a very special video recorded by John that is self-explanatory. I think he would have appreciated getting in the last word too.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes, I understand that every life must end. As we sit alone, I know someday we must go on. Oh, I'm a lucky man to count on both hands the ones I love. Some folks just have one, yeah, others they got none. Stay with me, oh, let's just breathe. Practiced on my sins, never gonna let me win. Under everything, just another human being. Yeah, I don't wanna hurt. There's so much in this world to make me bleed. Did I say that I need you? Did I say that I want you? Or if I did, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me. As I come clean, I wonder every day as I look upon your face. Everything you gave and nothing you would take on. Nothing you would take. Everything you gave. Did I say that I need you? Oh, did I say that I want you? Oh, if I did, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me.
Good evening, everybody. I've been asked to make this video interview, and this is probably about the 20th time that I've tried it because I'm not very good at this stuff. I'm going to do my best not to use the word fuck a lot, and because a lot of my colleagues are probably heading for the door already because they're really worried I'm going to say fuck all night. So I'm going to try hard not to. First of all, I'm doing this because I want to thank everybody, and I can't thank you in person because I'm 12,000 miles away. The only reason why I'm here is to get better, or hopefully get better. And everyone in that room who's there, and many others, hundreds more, have put money towards me getting better. Basically, you're all saving my life and giving me time with my son. I can't actually tell you what that means as a father, but many of you know as a parent what that should mean. Yeah, as a police officer, I'll try and lighten the mood up a little bit and not use the word fuck a lot. Alright, as a police officer, I've been in Manukau for over 10 years, and that's all I've worked in the police, and it's a very small stint in Auckland. I've seen a lot. We get to work with the dregs of humanity, and we get to witness an unspeakable act of violence from man against man against woman. Doing that, you become hardened a little bit, and you also find it very difficult to ask for help from anyone, because like everybody, when you go to the police, you expect them to be able to fix everything and deal with everything that they're just given with their notebook and their pen and their will to do it right. After doing that for over 10, coming up to 12 years, it's extremely hard for them to ask for help. So for me, asking for help was a big deal for me. See, other people have asked for help in the past, but as a police officer, we find it really, really difficult. People ask me for help all the time, and that's my job, but it's also what I like doing, is helping people. So for me to have you help me is incredible. You have bought me time with my son, my wife, and in 7.5 months' time, a new baby. So I can't measure that. I also want to acknowledge people have made quite a lot of sacrifices for me, and I mean that financially. I can't believe when I look on the Give a Little page that people have actually given money to me for my treatment. I read every message again and again, because I don't even know 99% of the people that are on there that have done that for me. That's an extraordinary thing. And again, if you look around the room, every one of you has pretty much done the same. And that's an incredible gesture you've made for me, which I will not forget. And I will try and repay by surviving and working in the community for another 10 to 12 years. I also want to say a big thank you to all my colleagues that have humiliated themselves tonight. Many of them, I think, enjoy wearing women's clothing, whether tonight or other nights, probably behind closed doors, Rogan. Because some of you that I've seen the pictures of look like they're really well-fitting clothes, which I'm pretty sure you just don't pull off the peg. So if you're using your own clothes, that's fine. I know who you are, and I do appreciate you coming out and telling everybody. I'm going to wrap it up. I didn't say fuck a lot, or the C word, so you all know that I can use it, but I won't tonight. But thank you all again. When I'm back and you see me in the street, wave to me, give me a nod. I'll come over and thank you personally, with my son and my wife and my family, because you all deserve that, and I wish I could be there to shake your hands all one by one, because you deserve that. I'm going to sign off now, but again, thank you. I won't forget any of you. Have a good night. All get drunk, throw up everywhere, let the police get called. You're pretty much all going to get out of jail card tonight, I'm pretty sure anyway. Take care. Good night. This isn't easy, because it's not easy because you're my friends. But yeah, I'm dying. Don't have long. I'm trying to take it like a man. I hate someone who think I was a fucking pussy. Fucking rainbow wearing sucking So I'm not one of those. So I'll go out with my boots on and I'll have my AR in my hand and I'll die like a man. I've been lucky. I've had a good life. I've done a lot of things that most people only dream about. Done a lot of things that people would cringe about. I've done a lot of things that should put me in prison. I have to say I've lived 2 lifetimes. I'm only 45, but I've lived 2 lifetimes. And most of that is down to the people I've met, filling my life with fraction stories I've heard tonight. I remember them all. I remember everybody that stood by me. I remember Christmas, having a fight with 120 people. Papakura, for units for everywhere. It was awesome. Still blame Mike Johnson, that was his call. 100 more jobs in my head just like that, and they're all great memories. And I wouldn't swap any of them, or even what I have now. Also, I would not swap them for the life I've lived and the way I'm going to go out. I would like to go out in a big pile of grass, standing around a pile of fucking PRNs. With a bail list in my teeth. I won't. That's a promise. Just make everybody nervous. That won't happen. What more can I say is, I actually, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I like to think I took it well. I wasn't really that fucking bothered. I was like, fucking. I thought I'd just dropped dead of a heart attack anyway. So to have people fundraise for me though, because when people come up to me and say, "Oh, we'll do some fundraising for me," I was thinking, I don't really have that many friends. I tend to be the one person that will tell you in the iCar whether you're a cunt. Not only will I tell you, I will pull that car over. I will put it in park What can a man say? You may not have saved my life, but you gave me time with my son, and hopefully I'll get to hold my daughter. Now, if you hadn't done that and raised that money, I wouldn't have made Christmas. I wouldn't have had a Christmas with my son. And I would, for sure, wouldn't have got to hold my daughter. And she wouldn't have got to hear my voice. But you stretched things out for me. And I can't put a number on that. If it was just me on my own, I wouldn't have cared. But thank you. That's all I need to say, really. Thank you. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to leave because I don't want to say any more goodbyes. I'm not good with goodbyes, and at the moment I can stand up in a few weeks. Maybe days I'm not going to be able to stand up, and I don't want any of you to see me the way I will be soon. I want you to remember me jumping out of an I-car with a side handle baton, cracking some cunt's head. I am having a coronary.
A lot of you just went through a roller coaster of a ride, listening to and seeing John on the screen. He was, without doubt, a courageous and humble man who really appreciated all your support, and a man who cared very deeply about his family and his friends. On behalf of Lisa, William and Charlotte, I thank all the people who shared their heartfelt messages of John's life. There is no denying he was taken too soon. He was meant to live a full life, but a full life is relative. John packed more into his 45 years than a lot of people do in 90 years. As Abraham Lincoln once said, in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, but it's the life in your years. John, you courageously fought to stay with us, to share and stay with your soulmate and your love, Lisa, and be here for your much-loved children, William and Charlotte, and it was not to be. I said at the beginning of the service that I liken my role as a weaver of a story supplied by you, his family and his friends. John would be proud that you told his story with such heartfelt emotions. As the final chapter in this service, I would like you all now to stand for the committal. John, we join as one to bid you farewell. In the safe knowledge you will always remain in the hearts and memories of those whose lives you touched. You have made us laugh and cry. You have cared about your work and your colleagues. You have loved your family and friends well and have been loved by them. This world is a better place for you to have walked amongst us. So go now with our blessings. You have indeed fought the good fight. Rest in peace. I now call the pallbearers to come forward and put the police